I was just about to knock on my parents' door when I heard them tell my brother, "Don't worry about the debt, your sister will take care of it. She never turns down family." I quietly stepped away and transferred every penny out of my account. What they didn't realize was, my heart didn't just break that day, it shattered into a million pieces, listening to my own family plot against me from behind a closed door. What if the people you loved most saw you not as a daughter or sister, but as an ATM with a convenient guilt trigger, ready for their next withdrawal? The scent of my mother's familiar lasagna usually meant comfort, but that Tuesday evening, as I stood outside their bedroom door, the air thick with unspoken avarice, it felt like a trap. I'd just come to share some incredible news, carrying a $15,000 bonus check, but what I heard instead would rewrite every family memory I held dear. 32 years old, and Sarah Peterson, the responsible one, the nurse who worked through a pandemic, was about to discover the bitter truth about her family. "Don't worry about the debt, Michael," my father, Robert, said, his voice a low rumble I could just make out. "We'll make your sister pay. She'll never say no to family." My hand, already raised to knock, froze midair. The words hit me like a physical blow, stealing the breath from my lungs. Before I dive deeper into the painful unraveling of my world, tell me in the comments if you've ever felt this kind of betrayal. Growing up in suburban Chicago, our modest blue-sided house looked perfectly normal. My father, Robert, was an accountant, providing a steady income that kept us comfortable, never rich. My mother, Carol, a third-grade teacher, brought home glitter-covered clothes and charming stories. On paper, we were the quintessential middle-class American family. But underneath, a subtle, insidious pattern had always existed. Michael, for years my junior, seemed to effortlessly capture my parents' hearts. Where I was practical and studious, he was charming, adventurous. I followed rules. He broke them with a smile that somehow always earned forgiveness, not punishment. They called him their free spirit and me, their responsible one, a label that sounded complimentary but became a crushing burden. In high school, I maintained straight A's, played volleyball, and worked weekends at a pharmacy, meticulously saving for college. When I turned 16, my parents contributed $2,000 towards a used Toyota with over 100,000 miles, but only after I saved $3,000 of my own. I was grateful, of course. That car symbolized freedom, earned through my own effort. For years later, for Michael's 16th birthday, a brand new Honda Civic. No savings required. No discussion of responsibility. When I cautiously mentioned the disparity to Carol, she simply said, "You were always so independent, Sarah." Michael needs more support. College mirrored this narrative. I earned partial scholarships, worked 30 hours a week, and maintained a 3.8 GPA in my nursing program, graduating with $12,000 in loans that I paid off within 5 years. Michael, on the other hand, attended an expensive private university, changing majors 3 times before dropping out. My parents paid every dime of his tuition, never asking for repayment as he squandered their investment. My career path was a testament to hard work. From staff nurse to charge nurse, then to nurse manager at Chicago Memorial Hospital, I put in extra hours, volunteered for impossible shifts, and built a reputation for excellence. During the pandemic, I worked 60-hour weeks, risking my health while colleagues fell ill. The hospital rewarded my dedication with a promotion and that $15,000 bonus I received that fateful Tuesday. Michael's career, if you could even call it that, was a series of fleeting entrepreneurial ventures, a custom t-shirt business that lasted 4 months, a food delivery app abandoned before it launched, and most recently, an import business dealing in luxury items that he was suspiciously vague about. Each failure was cushioned by my parents' money, explained away as bad timing or learning experiences. Despite recognizing the favoritism, I clung to my family. Sunday dinners were tradition. I called Carol multiple times a week. I remembered birthdays and anniversaries with thoughtful gifts. Family meant everything, and I was willing to overlook their glaring inequities to preserve those bonds. At 32, I finally had stability. A modest 2-bedroom condo in a good neighborhood, a steadily growing savings account, a 10-year-old reliable car. My life wasn't flashy. It was secure, a security I'd built through years of discipline. There had been warning signs about Michael's finances, hushed phone calls that ended when I entered a room, Carol borrowing $2,000 for a home repair I never saw evidence of, Robert asking pointed questions about my salary and savings. But I ignored them, unwilling to believe my family would intentionally exploit me. That belief was about to be obliterated. The day it all changed, April 15th, tax day, started ordinarily. I'd just finished a grueling 12-hour shift, my feet aching but my spirits soaring. The hospital administrator had just announced special bonuses for leadership who excelled during the latest COVID surge. When my name was called and I held that $15,000 check, I nearly wept. After 3 brutal years, this recognition felt like a balm. My first thought wasn't about myself. It was about sharing the news with my family. Despite our complicated dynamic, their approval still mattered. I decided to stop by their house on my way home, imagining their proud faces, perhaps a spontaneous celebration. I even considered helping Carol with the kitchen renovation she'd talked about for years. That's who I was, always thinking of how to share my good fortune. I arrived at their colonial home around 5:30, using the spare key, as I'd done hundreds of times. "Mom? Dad? Anyone home?" I called out, but silence. Their cars were in the driveway. I knew they were there. Assuming they were in the backyard garden, I decided to check upstairs first. As I approached their bedroom, muffled voices. I was about to knock when Michael's distinctive, slightly whiny tone cut through the door. "It's $75,000, Dad. I know it's a lot, but this time it's different." My hand paused midair. I hadn't known Michael was visiting. Curiosity, dark and unsettling, held me rooted. $75,000? Robert's voice rose. "Michael James Wilson, that's more than I make in a year. How could you possibly get into that much debt again?" The supplier raised his prices after I'd already committed to my buyers, Michael whined. "It's not my fault. And now these guys are serious about collecting. They've given me 30 days. What kind of suppliers are these?" Carol asked, her voice tight with worry. "Michael, are you in some kind of trouble?" "No, Mom. It's just business," he dismissed. "But I need help fast." "We don't have that kind of money," Robert said, despair in his voice. "We remortgaged the house to cover your last venture, and we're still paying off the loan for the one before that." My stomach tightened. Remortgaged? They'd never mentioned financial troubles to me. "What about that investment opportunity in Florida?" Carol suggested. "The timeshare presentation said we could make our money back in 3 years. I bit my lip to keep from groaning. My parents were terrible with money, despite Robert's accounting background, falling for every get-rich-quick scheme. "That would take too long," Michael snapped. "I need the cash now." "What about Sarah?" "She must have savings." At the mention of my name, I pressed closer to the door, my heart hammering. "Your sister works hard for her money," Robert began. And for a fleeting second, a surge of gratitude. But then he continued, "But yes, she's always been responsible with her finances. And she just got promoted." Carol added eagerly. "She probably has at least 50,000 saved by now. And didn't she mention something about a bonus coming up?" The gratitude curdled into disbelief. They were discussing my money they had no right to, as if it were a family resource. "So, we'll ask her to loan it to me," Michael said, his voice brightening. "Problem solved." "She might hesitate at such a large amount," Robert said slowly. "She's been asking more questions lately about those other loans." Carol's voice dropped to a conspiratorial whisper I'd never heard from her before. "Don't worry about that. Sarah has always been a pushover when it comes to family. We'll just tell her it's for Michael's medical bills or something. She's a nurse. She'll understand healthcare costs. Or we could tell her it's for a business opportunity she could invest in," Michael suggested, a dangerous glint in his tone. "She's always going on about retirement planning." A cold dread spread through my chest. My family, plotting to lie to me. "However we approach it," Robert said firmly, "don't worry about the debt, Michael. We'll make your sister pay. She'll never say no to family." The 3 of them laughed, a chilling sound that hit me like physical blows. "Good old responsible Sarah," Michael snickered. "Always there to clean up my messes." She does love to feel needed, Carol added. We'll just appeal to her nurturing side. And if she hesitates, Robert added, I'll remind her of all we did for her growing up. Guilt always works with Sarah. Their words confirmed what I had always suspected but desperately refused to believe. My reliability wasn't respected, it was exploited. They didn't see me as the successful, independent woman I'd worked so hard to become. They saw me as an ATM, with a convenient guilt trigger. My vision blurred with tears. A wave of nausea hit me so hard, I had to press my hand against the wall for support. My heart pounded, nearly drowning out their continued plotting. The hallway seemed to spin, 32 years of family memories reorganizing themselves into a sickening pattern of manipulation and favoritism I could no longer deny. I backed away silently, grateful for the plush carpet that muffled my footsteps. I couldn't confront them. Not now. Not when I felt so utterly shattered. I needed space. To think. To process this searing betrayal. As I crept down the stairs and out the front door, closing it with the gentlest click, a strange calm began to replace the initial shock. By the time I reached my car, parked a little way down the street, determination had begun to burn through the hurt. They thought they knew me. Predictable, reliable Sarah, who always said yes. But they had no idea what I was capable of when pushed too far. The 20-minute drive home passed in a blur. I don't remember traffic lights or turns. My mind replayed fragments of their conversation. She'll never say no to family. Good old responsible Sarah. Guilt always works with Sarah. When I finally parked in my condo building's garage, I sat motionless, trying to steady my breathing. My phone buzzed. A text from Carol. Are you coming for dinner Sunday? Making your favorite lasagna. The casual normalcy of it, knowing what I now knew, made me laugh bitterly. My fingers hovered over the screen, tempted to unleash my rage, but I resisted. Strategic thinking, not emotional reaction, would guide me forward. I replied with a simple lie, got called back to the hospital for an emergency. We'll call tomorrow. Then I turned off notifications and entered my apartment. The space I'd always found so comforting, soft blue walls, carefully chosen furniture, now felt like the only safe place in my world. I kicked off my shoes, sank onto the couch, and finally let the tears come. But they weren't just tears of hurt. They burned with a cold, simmering anger. As the initial shock subsided, my analytical mind took over. I started cataloging previous financial help I'd given. The $5,000 for Robert and Carol's 30th anniversary trip to Hawaii, a loan never repaid. The $3,000 for Michael's car repairs after an accident I later discovered happened while he was driving drunk. The $7,000 towards my parents' roof replacement, which mysteriously covered the exact amount of Michael's outstanding tuition from his second failed attempt at college. I pulled out my laptop and opened a spreadsheet, methodically documenting every dollar I could remember. The total made me physically ill. $48,600. Nearly $50,000. All while I worked extra shifts and lived frugally. The pattern was unmistakable, laid out in rows and columns. Each request came wrapped in crisis language. Each time, I was praised for being such a help and promised repayment. Each time, repayment was conveniently forgotten until I brought it up, only to be made to feel petty for mentioning it. Sarah, family helps family, Carol would say. When you need something, we'll be there. But now I understood the truth. The support flowed one way, toward Michael, fueled by my parents' enablement. I reached for my phone and called Emily Davis, my best friend since nursing school. Unlike me, she came from a family that respected boundaries and celebrated independence. She'd questioned my family's treatment of me many times, but I'd always defended them. What's wrong, Sarah? You sound terrible. Emily's concern was immediate. For the next hour, I poured out everything: the overheard conversation, the manipulation, the history of financial exploitation. Emily listened without interrupting, only occasionally making sounds of outrage. I hate to say I told you so, she finally said when I finished, her voice gentle. But I've been watching them take advantage of you for years. Remember when your car broke down last winter and you asked if they could help with the tow? And your dad said they were a little tight right now? That was the same week they bought Michael that expensive leather jacket for Christmas. I made excuses for them, I admitted, a fresh wave of shame washing over me. I thought if I was useful enough, helpful enough, they'd value me the way they value him. Honey, they value what you can give them, not who you are, Emily said, her words hitting home with painful accuracy. And it's not your fault. You've been conditioned since childhood to be the responsible one, the caretaker. They exploit your good heart. I had spent my life trying to earn the same unconditional love they gave Michael freely. What do I do now? I asked. First, you protect yourself, Emily said firmly. Move your money somewhere they can't access it. Create documentation of all those past loans. And for God's sake, don't give them another penny. After hanging up, I spent hours reviewing bank statements, gathering evidence. Sleep was impossible. Every family memory replayed with new context. Carol praising me for being so mature about money while setting me up as the family bankroll. Robert proudly telling his friends about my career success while calculating my earning potential for Michael's benefit. By morning, exhaustion had hardened into resolve. I showered, dressed in my most professional outfit, a charcoal pencil skirt and burgundy blouse, and prepared to take back control of my life. The nurse who had managed a critical care unit during a pandemic wasn't going to be manipulated by her family anymore. The moment Valley Credit Union opened at 9 a.m., I was waiting. The security guard nodded respectfully as he unlocked the doors, and I strode directly to the customer service desk. I need to speak with a personal banker immediately, I stated. It's regarding account security. Within minutes, I was seated across from Maya Sharma, a financial advisor with a no-nonsense bob and shrewd eyes. How can I help you today, Ms. Peterson? She asked. I need to secure my finances from potential unauthorized access, I explained, keeping my voice steady despite the emotion churning beneath the surface. I'd like to open new accounts that no one in my family can access and transfer my funds immediately. If Maya was curious about the urgency, she didn't show it. She efficiently walked me through the process, setting up new accounts with enhanced security features, passwords my parents could never guess or talk their way into accessing. I'd also like to review who's listed as beneficiaries on all my accounts, I added, realizing I'd probably listed Robert, Carol, or Michael years ago. 2 hours later, I left the credit union with my savings, including my recent bonus, safely secured. I'd also removed Carol as an authorized user on my credit card, something I'd done years ago when she claimed she needed it just for emergencies. The small, card-shaped imprint had faded in my wallet where I'd carried that credit card for 7 years, rarely using it myself because Carol occasionally made purchases that strained my credit limit. My next stop was the office of Maya Sharma, the financial advisor Emily had recommended. Her office was warm but professional, with credentials displayed tastefully. Emily mentioned you needed urgent financial guidance, Maya said after introductions. I took a deep breath and shared a condensed version of my situation. Unfortunately, this isn't uncommon, Maya said sympathetically. Family financial exploitation happens more often than people realize. Let's create a comprehensive plan to protect your assets. Over the next 3 hours, Maya helped me document every loan I'd made, complete with dates, amounts, and any evidence I had. We discussed the legal concept of promissory notes and how, without them, my previous financial assistance would likely be considered gifts. Moving forward, if you ever decide to help family financially again, we'll create proper documentation, Maya explained. But based on what you've told me, I strongly advise against providing any further financial assistance. Maya also helped me draft a financial boundary document, a clear statement of what I would and would not do regarding money and family. It wasn't legally binding, but the act of writing it down strengthened my resolve. By late afternoon, I was mentally exhausted, but feeling more empowered than I had in years. I stopped at a local cafe for a late lunch, reviewing the boundary statements. I will not provide loans or gifts above $100 to family members. Any financial assistance must be documented with repayment terms. I will not co-sign loans or provide access to my credit. I will not discuss specific details of my income, savings, or financial planning with family. I reserve the right to say no to any financial request without explanation. Reading these simple statements, a weight lifted from my shoulders. For years, I'd operated under unspoken family rules that entitled them to my resources. Now, I was creating my own rules. My phone had been buzzing periodically throughout the day. 5 missed calls from Carol, 2 from Robert, and a text from Michael asking if I was coming to dinner on Sunday because he had big news to share. The transparent setup made me both sad and angry. That evening, I had a virtual appointment with Dr. Lee, a therapist I'd been seeing occasionally since the pandemic. I hadn't planned to discuss family issues. Our sessions usually focused on work stress, but today's revelations poured out of me. What you're describing is a family system that's designated you as the responsible one, the rescuer, Dr. Lee explained. These roles get established early and can be very difficult to change because everyone in the system resists the change, often unconsciously. So they'll fight me on this? I asked. Almost certainly, she confirmed. Expect guilt trips, anger, accusations that you're being selfish or having a mental health crisis. This is all predictable when someone changes the dynamics of a dysfunctional system. Dr. Lee helped me rehearse responses. For guilt, I understand you're disappointed, but I need to make financial decisions that align with my goals. For anger, I can see you're upset. We can continue this conversation when everyone is calmer. For accusations, I'm making decisions that are right for me. I don't need to justify them. By the end of our session, I felt mentally prepared for Sunday's dinner. Rather than canceling, I decided to attend. I wanted to observe their manipulation tactics with my new awareness. I wanted to see if they would actually execute the plan I'd overheard. Remember, Dr. Lee said before we ended the call, changing patterns takes time and consistency. There will be moments when your resolve weakens. That's normal. Just return to your boundaries. I spent Saturday strengthening my support system, calling friends I'd neglected while prioritizing family. I cleaned my apartment, worked out, and mentally prepared. The anger had settled into a cool, sharp determination. I wasn't going to explode. That would only confirm their narrative that I was irrational. Instead, I would be calm, clear, and unmanipulable. Sunday arrived with a knot of tension in my stomach, but a newfound clarity in my mind. As I drove, I reminded myself I was not responsible for Michael's debts. I was not obligated to sacrifice my financial security for someone who wouldn't do the same for me. And most importantly, saying no didn't make me a bad daughter or sister. It made me a healthy adult with appropriate boundaries. I arrived at my parents' house at 5 sharp, the same time I'd arrived for countless Sunday dinners. Yet, everything felt different. The familiar blue house seemed like a stage set now, a facade hiding decades of manipulation. I noticed details I'd overlooked. New patio furniture, expensive landscape lighting, Carol's new diamond earrings glinting as she opened the door. None of these purchases aligned with their claims of financial struggle. Sarah. Carol enveloped me in a hug that lasted too long, her perfume overwhelming. We missed you the other day. Hospital emergencies are so unpredictable, aren't they? Her tone held the perfect blend of sympathy and admiration, a manipulation tactic I now recognized. She was establishing my identity as the hardworking, self-sacrificing daughter before the financial ask. Nature of the job, I replied neutrally, handing her a mid-range bottle of wine, not the expensive brand I usually selected to impress them. A small, active boundary setting. Robert emerged from his study, reading glasses perched on his nose. There's our medical professional. How's hospital life treating you? He hugged me briefly, then added with calculated casualness, any exciting career news lately? The fishing for information about my bonus was so transparent. Nothing special, I lied smoothly. Same. Challenges, different day. The slight disappointment in his eyes confirmed my suspicions. Michael here yet? I asked, moving toward the living room. He's running a bit late, Carol replied. You know your brother, always so many irons in the fire. I nodded, thinking of the irons that had created his $75,000 debt. I'll help you in the kitchen, I offered, falling into my usual role while observing everything with new eyes. In the kitchen, evidence of their financial disconnect continued. A new stand mixer, still with the price tag partially visible, $399, premium ingredients lining the countertops, imported Italian olive oil, specialty cheeses, organic vegetables. My parents had always lived slightly beyond their means. Now I wondered how much of that lifestyle had been subsidized by my loans. Michael arrived 45 minutes late, breezing in with the confidence of someone who knows they'll be forgiven anything. Traffic was insane, he announced without apology. He wore designer jeans and a casual blazer that probably cost more than my entire outfit. On his wrist gleamed a watch I recognized as a Tag Heuer, easily $4,000. So much for his desperate debt situation. He hugged me with one arm, a performative gesture devoid of actual affection. "How's my big sister, the healthcare hero?" The subtle emphasis on big was another dig. At 32, I was 4 years older, but also carried about 20 pounds more than his gym-sculpted frame. "I'm well," I replied, studying him openly. "Nice watch." A flash of something guilt? Annoyance crossed his face before his charm reasserted itself. "This old thing? Had it for ages." A lie. The style had only been released 3 months ago. I knew because a doctor I worked with had the same one. Dinner progressed with an undercurrent of tension I'd never noticed before. Carol served her signature lasagna, my favorite, while peppering the conversation with comments about family loyalty and support. "That's what makes the Petersons special," she said, refilling wine glasses. "We always come through for each other, no matter what." Robert steered the conversation toward finances with practiced subtlety. "The hospital must be doing well despite everything. I read that healthcare salaries are at an all-time high." He paused, then added, "especially for management positions." I took a small bite of lasagna, no longer tasting the food I once loved. Some organizations are doing better than others. Mine has had budget cuts. Michael jumped in, setting up his play. "Speaking of finances, I've been exploring an amazing investment opportunity." His eyes gleamed with practiced enthusiasm. "It's in cryptocurrency, a special pre-launch offering that's only available to selected investors." I nodded, waiting for the pitch. "The minimum buy-in is $50,000, he continued, "but the projected returns are incredible. 3 to 5 times investment within 6 months. "Sounds too good to be true," I remarked mildly. "That's what I thought," Carol exclaimed. "But Michael has done his research. He showed your father and me all the projections." Robert cleared his throat. "We were thinking of creating a family investment pool, combining resources to take advantage of this opportunity." And there it was. The ask. Wrapped in the guise of benefiting everyone rather than bailing out Michael. "Tell me more about this investment," I said, setting down my fork. "Who's the company? What's their track record?" Michael's confidence faltered slightly. "It's a private offering, very exclusive. The company is called Future Coin Technologies." "And their history? How long have they been in business?" "They're new, but the founders came from established firms," he said vaguely. "Which firms?" "I'd have to check my notes for the specific names." I nodded, taking a sip of water. "And the $75,000 debt you need to pay off. Is that related to this investment?" The silence that descended over the dining room was absolute. Carol's fork clattered against her plate. Robert's face drained of color. Michael's expression shifted from shock to ugly anger. "How did you?" he began. "I heard everything," I said calmly. "Tuesday afternoon, I came by to share some good news. I was outside your bedroom door when you were discussing how to manipulate me into paying Michael's debts." Carol recovered first. "Sarah, you misunderstood what you heard." I didn't misunderstand anything," I interrupted, my voice steady. "Dad said, and I quote, 'Don't worry about the debt, Michael. We'll make your sister pay. She'll never say no to family.' Then you all laughed about how I'm such a responsible pushover. You were eavesdropping on a private conversation." Robert blustered, attempting to shift blame. "I was about to knock when I heard you planning to lie to me," I corrected him. "Mom suggested telling me it was for medical bills." Michael thought framing it as an investment opportunity would appeal to me more. I turned to my brother. "Like the one you just invented." Michael's handsome face contorted with rage. "You always think you're so much better than me, don't you? Perfect Sarah, with her nursing career and her responsible lifestyle." "I don't think I'm better than you," I replied. "I just refuse to be your personal bailout fund anymore. After everything we've done for you." Carol cried, tears springing to her eyes on cue. The performance was impressive, but no longer effective. What exactly have you done for me? I asked quietly. I worked through school. I paid my own way. I bought my own car and home. Meanwhile, you've given Michael everything while taking from me. Robert's strategy shifted to minimization. You're blowing this out of proportion. It was just a conversation, not a conspiracy. Families discuss finances. Families don't plot to exploit each other, I countered. And this isn't just about Tuesday. I've calculated how much money I've loaned this family over the past 10 years. Nearly $50,000 that was never repaid. Michael snorted. That's what family does. No, I said firmly. That's what enablers and users do. And I'm done with both roles. I stood up, surprising myself with how calm I felt. I've moved my money where you can't access it. I've documented every loan none of you have repaid, and I'm establishing clear boundaries going forward. You would abandon your family over money? Carol demanded, her manipulation shifting to its final form, questioning my moral character. This isn't about money, I said. It's about respect and honesty, neither of which you've shown me. You are willing to lie to my face and laugh behind my back. That's not family. So that's it? Michael sneered. You're just walking away? I'm walking away from being exploited, I clarified. If you want a relationship with me going forward, it will be built on mutual respect, not what I can give you. Robert stood, his face flushed with anger. You're being ridiculous and ungrateful. After all we've sacrificed for you. Name one sacrifice, I challenged. One thing you've done for me that you didn't do twice over for Michael. His mouth opened and closed, but no examples came. I picked up my purse and walked toward the door, turning back one last time. I love you all. That hasn't changed. But love without boundaries isn't love. It's exploitation. When you're ready to have an honest relationship, I'll be here. Until then, I'm taking care of myself. I walked out, closing the door gently behind me. In my car, I took a deep breath, surprised by the lightness I felt. For the first time in my adult life, I had stood up for myself against the people who had trained me to put their needs first. It hurt, yes, but beneath the pain was something new and precious, self-respect. The barrage began before I even reached home. My phone pinged with texts from Carol, alternating between guilt trips. I can't believe you would hurt us like this, and attempts to minimize. You completely misunderstood everything. Robert's approach was more direct, voicemails in his stern accountant voice explaining how family financial support was completely normal, and how I was overreacting to standard family dynamics. Michael's messages vacillated wildly between threatening, "You'll regret turning your back on family," and apologetic, "I'm sorry if you felt exploited, but I really do need help." The transparency of the manipulation was almost laughable now that I could recognize it. I didn't respond to any of them that night. Instead, I poured a glass of wine, ran a bath, and allowed myself to feel the complex emotions washing through me. Grief for the family relationship I had thought I had, anger at years of exploitation, and, underneath it all, a growing sense of liberation. By Monday morning, the communication strategy had escalated. Carol had called my cousin Nicole, my Aunt Sophia, and even my elderly grandmother to enlist them in pressuring me. Aunt Sophia called as I was getting ready for work. "Sarah, your mother is absolutely distraught," she began without preamble. "She says you had some kind of breakdown at dinner yesterday and accused the family of terrible things." I took a deep breath, remembering Dr. Lee's advice about staying calm. "That's not what happened, Aunt Sophia. I overheard them planning to manipulate me into paying Michael's debts." When I confronted them, they didn't deny it. "Well, I'm sure there's been a misunderstanding," she said dismissively. "Your mother said they were just discussing family finances, and you took it personally. Did she mention that Michael needs $75,000, or that they were laughing about how I'd never say no to family?" Aunt Sophia paused. $75,000? That can't be right. It is. And it's not the first time they've used me as Michael's personal bailout fund. Another pause. "Look, I know Michael has had his struggles, but your parents would never intentionally take advantage of you. They love you. I believe they love me in their way," I acknowledged, "but they've been using me financially for years. I'm simply setting boundaries now." Boundaries, she repeated as if the word were foreign. Sarah, there are no boundaries in family. Family is about being there for each other no matter what. Even when it's one-sided. Even when it involves lies and manipulation. My aunt said heavily, "You've always been so independent, so different from the rest of us. Maybe that's why you don't understand how families work." Her words were meant to make me feel like the outsider, the one with the problem. A week ago, they might have worked. Today, they simply confirmed I was making the right decision. "I understand exactly how our family works," I said gently. "That's why I'm changing my role in it." Throughout the week, I discovered more troubling information. My cousin Nicole, who worked at the bank where my parents had their accounts, called me privately. "I shouldn't be telling you this," she whispered into the phone, "but after what you told Aunt Sophia, I thought you should know. Your parents took out a second mortgage 3 months ago. The amount was exactly $75,000. The pieces clicked into place. They already paid Michael's debt." "Looks that way," Nicole confirmed. "And from what I can see, they're struggling to make the payments. Your dad's retirement account shows multiple withdrawals, too." The revelation should have made me angrier, but instead, I felt a profound sadness. My parents had risked their retirement security for Michael yet again, and they had planned to recoup the money from me rather than holding him accountable. Through careful conversations with other family members, I pieced together more of the truth. Michael's import business was a cover story. In reality, he had accumulated massive gambling debts to some dangerous people in Atlantic City. The investment opportunity was entirely fictional, a story created to extract money from me. The pressure intensified. Robert called my supervisor at the hospital, claiming concern about my mental health and unusual behavior, a blatant attempt to undermine my credibility. Fortunately, my professional reputation was solid, and the attempt backfired when my supervisor mentioned it to me sympathetically. "Family estrangement is more common than people realize," she told me during our weekly meeting. "My brother and I didn't speak for 5 years until he got treatment for his addiction. Sometimes distance is the healthiest choice." Her support reminded me that I wasn't alone. At Emily's suggestion, I joined an online support group for adults dealing with financially exploitative families. The stories shared there mirrored my own experience, with eerie similarity. "My parents remortgaged their house 3 times to bail out my brother," one woman wrote. "When they ran out of equity, they turned to me. When I refused, they told the entire extended family I was abandoning them in their time of need." These stories strengthened my resolve. I endured increasingly desperate tactics. Michael showed up at my workplace, creating a scene in the lobby until security escorted him out. Carol left tear-filled voicemails describing how she couldn't sleep or eat because of my cruelty. Robert alternated between stern lectures about family obligation and thinly veiled threats about being written out of their will. 10 days after the confrontation, I received their ultimatum in the form of a group text. "Sarah, we've given you time to reconsider your irrational position. Michael's situation is critical. As family, you have a responsibility to help. If you choose not to contribute to resolving this family crisis, we will have to reconsider your place in this family. The choice is yours." I read the message multiple times, feeling a strange calm settle over me. They were attempting their final and most powerful manipulation, threatening complete rejection unless I complied. In the past, this implicit threat had always loomed, making me anxious to please them at any cost. Now, I recognized it for what it was: emotional blackmail. I composed my response carefully. "I love you all and hope for healing in our relationship. However, I will not be providing financial assistance. I respect your right to make your own choices about our relationship going forward." Within minutes, my phone exploded with angry messages, but I didn't read them. Instead, I blocked their numbers temporarily, giving myself space to continue healing without constant emotional assault. The choice they had presented, compliance or rejection, was a false dichotomy. I was choosing a third option: healthy boundaries and self-respect. That night, I slept peacefully for the first time in weeks, no longer torn between family loyalty and self-preservation. The path forward would be difficult, but it was clear. And in that clarity, I found unexpected freedom. 6 months can change everything. As the autumn leaves turned Chicago into a canvas of orange and gold, I sat on my balcony with a cup of hot chocolate, reflecting on how much had shifted since that April evening when I overheard my family's betrayal. The most obvious change was the silence. After 3 months of emotional siege calls, texts, enlisted relatives, even a tear-filled ambush at my favorite grocery store, my family had finally accepted that their usual tactics wouldn't work. The constant communication had dwindled to occasional formal messages, a birthday card from Carol with no personal note, a group email about Thanksgiving plans I wasn't specifically invited to attend. The silence hurt at first. There were nights I cried myself to sleep, mourning the family connection I had valued so deeply. But gradually, the silence created space for healing and growth. Without the constant drain of their emotional and financial demands, I found energy for other relationships and pursuits. My condo, once just a place to sleep between hospital shifts and family obligations, became a true sanctuary. I repainted the living room a warm terracotta, hung art that spoke to me rather than matching Carol's taste, and adopted a rescue cat named Luna, who greeted me with purring affection when I returned from work. Professionally, I thrived without the undercurrent of family stress. 3 months after our confrontation, I was promoted to Director of Nursing for the entire Critical Care Division, a position that came with a substantial salary increase and greater influence over patient care protocols. The achievement felt purely mine, not something I needed to downplay around Michael or leverage for family approval. The most surprising development came in early October when Robert suffered a minor heart attack. I learned about it through my cousin Nicole, not from my parents directly. After a moment's hesitation, I went to the hospital, not out of obligation, but compassion. Robert looked smaller somehow in the hospital bed, vulnerable in a way I'd never seen him. When I entered his room, his eyes widened with genuine surprise. "Sarah," he said hoarsely. "You came?" I nodded, taking the chair beside his bed. "How are you feeling?" "Like an elephant is sitting on my chest," he admitted. "But they say I was lucky. No major damage." We sat in awkward silence for several minutes before he spoke again, his voice uncharacteristically hesitant. "The doctor who treated me," he said, "stress was a contributing factor." He paused, staring at the ceiling. "Financial stress." I waited, not offering the automatic reassurance I would have given in the past. "Michael's debts," he continued. "They were worse than we told you. The $75,000 was just the beginning. There was another $100,000 we didn't mention." The amount shocked me, but I kept my expression neutral. "I'm sorry to hear that." "We had to sell the vacation property in Michigan," he said. "The one we were going to retire to. And your mother's parents' antiques. Still not enough." "What happened with Michael?" I asked. Robert's face aged another decade as he answered. "He disappeared. Left town about a month ago. Said he had another opportunity in California and his debts, left them for us." For the first time in my life, I saw my father's eyes fill with tears. "You were right, Sarah. We enabled him. We failed him by never setting limits. And we failed you by expecting you to clean up our mess." The apology, however incomplete, was more than I had expected. It didn't erase the hurt or fully acknowledge the pattern of exploitation, but it was a start. "I can't fix this financially," I said gently. "Even if I wanted to, it wouldn't help Michael in the long run." "I know," Robert said, surprising me. "That's not why I'm telling you this. I want you to know that I see it now. What we did, how unfair it was." Carol never reached the same level of insight. When she arrived and found me there, her response cycled between tearful gratitude for my presence and subtle hints about their financial situation. The lifetime pattern of manipulation couldn't be broken in a single day. But I maintained my boundaries with calm consistency. "I'm here for emotional support," I told her clearly, "not financial assistance." Over the following months, I established careful, limited contact with my parents. Sunday dinners were replaced by occasional lunch meetings in public places, with clear time boundaries. I deflected personal financial questions and changed the subject when Michael's name came up, which was frequently. Meanwhile, my own support network flourished. Emily remained my steadfast ally, celebrating my boundaries and progress. My therapy sessions with Dr. Lee continued, focusing on rebuilding my identity separate from my role as family caretaker. I formed deeper connections with colleagues and reconnected with old friends I'd neglected while prioritizing family demands. The most unexpected connection came through the support group for family financial exploitation. There, I met others who understood exactly what I'd experienced. Together, we formed a local in-person group that met monthly for coffee and conversation. These strangers turned friends provided validation and perspective that my biological family never could. In a moment of inspiration, I worked with 2 group members to create a workshop for the hospital's community education program, Financial Boundaries and Family Dynamics. The first session filled to capacity, revealing how many people struggled with similar issues, but had never found language or support for them. Standing at the front of that classroom, sharing my experience to help others, I felt a sense of purpose that transcended the pain of family estrangement. My story, however difficult, could serve as a flashlight for others finding their way through similar darkness. Today, as I watch Luna chase fallen leaves across my balcony, I reflect on the complex journey of the past 6 months. The family I was born into may never fully understand or respect my boundaries. Michael remains absent, occasionally sending my parents requests for money from his new life in California. Carol still attempts subtle manipulation during our limited interactions. Robert, chastened by his health scare, shows glimmers of understanding, but frequently backslides into old patterns. Yet, I've discovered that family can be defined by actions rather than blood. It can include friends who respect your boundaries, colleagues who value your contributions, a therapist who guides your growth, group members who share your struggles, and even a rescue cat who greets you with unconditional affection. I've learned that saying no isn't selfish, it's sometimes the most self-respectful choice available. That guilt is often a sign you're changing unhealthy patterns, not an indication you're doing something wrong. That financial support without accountability isn't actually helping someone, it's enabling their continued dysfunction. Most importantly, I've learned that my worth isn't measured by my usefulness to others or my willingness to sacrifice myself. It exists inherently, requiring no justification or performance. The journey hasn't been easy, and it isn't over. There are still days I question my decisions, moments I miss the family relationships I wished I had rather than the exploitative ones I actually experienced. But with each boundary I maintain, each healthy relationship I nurture, each act of self-care I practice, the path becomes clearer. If you're watching this and recognizing your own family patterns in my story, know that you're not alone. Setting boundaries doesn't mean you don't love your family. It means you're loving yourself enough to require respect and honesty. Have you ever had to draw a line in the sand with loved ones? What did you learn about family, boundaries, and self-worth? Share your experience in the comments below. I'm reading everything. And if this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need to hear that it's okay to protect themselves, even from family. Thank you for listening to my journey. Remember, real love lifts you up. It doesn't drain you dry.